So the title of this video is going to be DNF Fooled. Now just stay with me. It's not going to be entirely negative. The last part of the video is going to be positive, but this is my updated opinion on how I feel this game, or my opinion of this game, is following, studying it more and looking up kind of the mechanics and just getting an updated view. Where do I even begin? There's so many, there's bad, but there's a lot of good. All right, so look, man, this game actually does have a comeback mechanic. Let's start there, but kind of sort of, and it's the conversions. So essentially, the game has Roman cancels, which is in the style of a Guilty Gear Xrd more so, where I can do an attack and I can press two buttons at the same time to do a sort of Roman cancel, and I can also do it in the air too, to do more combos, to string together more routes, obviously. So in order to do it, you need to delete your white health, which is what you see on the top left, to where I have it, the training mode set to take off a certain amount of white health so I can do the conversions. And that's like your temporary HP depletion, and then it'll deplete during a normal match, right? So it takes off your white health and then a little bit of your actual HP. But what you don't see is, like, let's say I do this and that, and I'm depleting the MP, right? And then I do it, it gives me MP, right? So the problem is this kind of works as a comeback mechanic, to where I'm gaining MP at the cost of my health, but I'm gaining MP and doing a time-stopping maneuver, right? A game pausing maneuver in order to increase my offense in a game that's already on steroids when it comes to the offense. So I'm giving a tool to not only string together more moves, but I'm giving the ammunition to do so with the added MP. And this is why it kind of sort of works as a comeback mechanic a little bit, not to the degree of the games that I am biased against, right? Like Tekken Rage mode are just a rage mechanics, right? But at the same time, it's kind of sort of a comeback mechanic, which to me is not, I wouldn't have wanted it to be that. It would have just been better if it was just a regular Roman cancel. But I'll get to at the end, I'll get to how I feel this game should have made some adjustments when it came to adding these moves. So you have that. So that's like kind of the first negative. And also, I don't feel that you need the conversions, right? Because you can already do so much in this game, you know? Yeah, you don't need to do that, right? So I feel like it's similar to like X Factor when it comes to Ultimate Marvel 3 or Marvel 3, to where the game already, you can OTG so easily, you can combo so easily, that there's an X Factor as well, which is not necessary because the game you can already combo so easily. So it's just like adding fuel to a fire that's already out of control, you know? And it makes it to where it's more capable offense, but in a bad way. All right, here's the next point. Call me crazy. When I played this game, I didn't know that there was a block button, but now learning the mechanics, now I've learned that, oh, there's a block button, because obviously I'm a legacy player, so I'll just hold back to block. Why would I even assume there's a block button? I haven't played Mortal Kombat in years, you know? But so there's a block button, right? Now, when I was reading on Reddit, it's just like, I don't know the ramifications of a block button because I don't come from games with a block button. But when you think about it, cross-ups are non-existent. They don't work as long as you use the block button and not hold back to block. Cross-ups are nasty in this game. Look at this character. She has a dash, right? She has a dash that she can cancel out of her normals in, right? And her skill moves too. So you can imagine if I do something like, this is just one character, right? To where many characters can do many just disgusting cross-ups. So it's very hard to guard in this game, assuming that you guard normally, hold back to block. This is what I was under the assumption that, okay, you guard normally, but with a guard button, you don't have, there's no cross-ups. So it makes sense when I was playing online. It's like a lot of the meta to this game is either grab or getting counter hits, right? Put people under hit stun, like, and so you're under hit stun, and then you're just trying to chip out, trying to prod, poke and prod, and then get a counter hit. But with the block button, like I said, you can't get through people's guard normally unless you just mix in grab, right? So so offensive pressure becomes stale in this game, and this is, without knowing the mechanics, this is how I felt when I was playing online too. But I just thought that, you know, I don't know everything to the game, right? And it turns out I was right, but there's some things that I didn't like that I didn't know. And here's the problem with the guard button. Remember how I said that, yo, if you do a normal magic button, like forward magic, then it takes longer to recover your MP, right? But if you do it the motion input version of it, which is down forward, then your MP recovers quicker. So I felt that it was rewarding you as a player for, hey, I'm going to learn how to play a fighting game properly. I'm not trying to sound disrespectful like that, but you see what I mean. It was herding you into the correct style of play, which I thought was good. This is a proper beginner fighter. But the fact that there is no punishment for using the block button versus the hold back to block button. I thought under this mentality of the previous notion of the magic inputs, I thought that, okay, there'd be a punishment for using guard button, but there's no punishment. It's like, yo, which if I'm guarding back, like here now, I have the CPU set to on, then there's no punishment. There's no difference. There's no reward for doing the hold back to guard, which I assume there'd be. Or at the very least, there should be a punishment for using the guard button. Now let me use guard button. Now I'm using guard button. And it's the same, you see? I just had a problem. Because why would I would just use a guard button. Why the hell would I hold back when I use the guard button when there's no disadvantage? And if I use the guard button, then I automatically adjust and switch sides depending on where my opponent is. So you have two ways to guard, but no difference between it. It also like invalidates interesting, unique offense. Like cross-ups are integral to anime fighters, so having like a cost-free button that negates them, it turns the exhibition of the match into like a demonstration of mashing until you land a lucky hit, rather than like a cerebral exchange of blows. And again, I'm not the best in this game. I just played it online for one long set. I would say I'm knowledgeable about fighting games in general, but that's how it felt like to me, to where you're kind of fishing for a counter hit, or you're fishing for like when your opponent happens to not be blocking, because cross-ups in the game are useless, right? And it's unfortunate because cross-ups are so well done in this game. The characters' offenses are so unique. Their abilities are so unique. So that's what makes it like tragic, the fact that cross-ups don't mean anything. Yeah, I think that needs to be fixed. What I would have done would make like the guard button a special guard button, like the meter block when it comes to Blaze Blue. I would have made it to where, yo, if you use the guard button, then your guard meter runs out quicker, right? It takes more of your guard meter. Or there's more chip damage or something like that, to where your guard button can be just a temporary fix. Because like I said, in this game, there's so many crazy cross-ups that I can see the point to where you need some way to guard against the offense in this game. Because you can do so much, you know? You can do so much. So you need something, I can understand that. But the fact that there's no punishment, again, like I said, this could have just been more on the guard meter. Like your guard meter runs out quicker and you're more at risk for a guard break. Or like I said, it could have been more chip, or it could have taken your MP to use your guard button. And they wouldn't even need to make the guard auto adjust. They could have just said, hey, it will create more pushback like a meter block on Blaze Blue, which throws off the timing of a cross up anyway. So it could have just been a special block using the guard button to allow you to, you know, combat cross ups as well as overheads. But we're going to get to overheads too. So yeah, that's my opinion. I think that's not a good thing. I think it's contradictory game plan for you to reward players for using motion inputs on meters, but you don't reward players for holding back to block. And my last point is the fact that there are no overheads in this game. And I mean overheads as in an overhead that you do while you're standing as a character. So if I do a move that looks like overhead, like that move, that you would think that's an overhead, right? You'd be wrong. And have him guard all, right? He can block that low. And that's, if that's not an overhead, then what is? She clearly has her axe descending upon the opponent. The only overheads in the game are regular attacks while you're jumping. So I have to attack him like this, and then he has to stand to block, as you saw he just did. Even skill moves while airborne are still not considered overhead, as such as this move right here. He doesn't have to stand to do that, and that's a skill move, right? Only if it's normal attacks, which is A or B, right? And that's it. So this game is so simplified, and again, I think mostly in a good way, but this is in a bad way, to where you need to learn overheads if you're playing a fighting game. If you're going into other fighting games, if this is a beginner fighter, then you'd expect the player to graduate to other more complex fighters, and you need to learn overheads. So the fact this should be an overhead, that's at the very least, any move coming from up top should be an overhead. That's unheard of in a fighting game. It doesn't matter what move you do, if you're jumping where you're doing this, like even a Street Fighter, a game that's you know, like ever since 5 and on has been textbook beginner fighter. Even that, you can't low guard a move when you're jumping in. What is this? What is that? That's crazy. Now even this, okay, that's an overhead. That's different. Okay, that puts a wrench in my theory. So I think most skill, and let's see MP moves, same thing, to where if I do an MP, doesn't have to stand. The fact is, low guarding is pretty consistent. Like, you can count on that being the default way to guard. And there's no standing overheads. And Ghostblade has many moves that clearly look like overhead. Bam. Like, do you think that should be an overhead? Yes or no? And it doesn't have to stand. Default directionless skill is an overhead move. So essentially normal attacks, so I have to correct myself. Essentially normal attacks like this are overheads, A and B. And then the default skill is, but if you have like a down or forward skill or a directional skill in the air, then that's not going to be overhead. That's what it seems like to me. All right, I have to test more characters, but you know, at least for 2 characters has been consistent. So that is one nook in the cranny right there, to where if I do a non-overhead airborne move followed by overhead airborne move, it seems they still have to stand according to what the CPU is doing. Like this, he still stands when he blocks my slash and not my ghost slash. So even still, like I said, most moves you can't, there's no grounded move where it's overhead. Only overheads are, like I said, are in normal skills or in normal attacks. Again, this is not conducive of learning a fighting game, and I think that's not necessary, to where you could just make all moves in the air overhead. Like, that's a basic skill to learn how to stand to guard incoming attacks and learn the difference between standing and low block. And how I feel they should have done it, to where, okay, I understand you want this to be a simplified fighting game. I understand that learning individual character overheads introduces a lot of complexity, right? If this is an overhead, then that's a fast overhead. Obviously, there need to be something slower. Like if you look at Street Fighter or Blaze Blue, then the overheads are typically very slow when it comes to standing overheads. But for this game, what they could have done is, yeah, make designated overhead moves. Oh, you don't have to do that. Not every character can have overhead. But you should have made it to where the overhead moves would be like a slower move. And this is just me spitballing. You could have made it to where, because if you introduce a designated overhead move, then that will introduce more move bloat. And I can see how they want to simplify the number of moves, right? So you could have had it to where if you did an overhead like this, then it would have had some special color or property to let the players know that, oh, an overhead move has just been done or it's incoming, right? And maybe if you block the overhead wrong, then it would have taken off like a third of your guard gauge or something. It would have introduced some penalty. It would have gave you like more chip or something like that. Like it would have taken off a lot more chip if you block the overhead wrong. But if you block it right, then you would increase an MP. Your MP would increase, or your white health will recover if you block overhead right. It could have been the same speed, but just introduce properties like that that rewards you for blocking the overhead correctly. That's exactly what I would have done, because it would have been too much to add an intentional overhead move that's slower. Like I said, every move in DNF Duel is pretty fast. Like this game has fast moves in general, you know? So if you give every character an overhead, then you need to introduce more moves, right? Which will introduce more bloat, like I said. So you should have previous existing moves overheads, you know, like this, and have it some special property, some special color, some indicator visually that it's an overhead. I think that would have been cool. And all the other things I just said when it comes to the reward for the white damage or the reward for more MP, and the punishment for not blocking overhead, which is more on the guard gauge, more chip or something like that. These are just methods I think that they should have done. The next point was actually originally going to be a negative, but this is going to be the start of the positives, the additional positives in this game that I didn't even realize. So initially I came into Inquisitor and playing her, and it's like, wow, she's much more simple than Ghostblade, who I normally play. And then I was like, man, this game is actually maybe too simple, because it's easy to do things in this game. And Ghostblade felt more like a manual character, more harder to do combos and stuff like that. But as I'm playing her, it's just like, no, it's not more simple, it's more fun. Like, and the statement of this game that I have to say, if I were to have a single sentence that describes this game, is it's more fun than it is simple. So let me just give you an example of my thought process. So I'm like, wow, it's so easy to do things, right? They're almost into skills like this. And so it's like, oh, this game's so easy. But then I'm just like reviewing the characters really fast. Then I see that, okay, she has a launch button. And okay, she can cancel this out of any skill or any normal or any skill move, right? So not only that, but she can cancel that after this move. And so she can even do this, right? So I can go something like, and I can combo that. So, okay, what if I do this after that, right? So I can go like, bam, 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 bam. And it's like, whoa. And it's such a spider web, it's such a sandbox offensively, to where me going into the character to complain, I end up spending like 20-30 minutes just practicing in the game, right? Like, okay, what if I start off with that combo, right? I go, and what can I do after this? Okay, well, if I do this, I know I can get a normal A attack. And you see the fact that I'm missing it means that this game isn't an easy game to get combos on. You have to have good timing, or else I wouldn't be missing it like that. If it was truly like a scrubby fighter, I would say, right? So I know I can't get this, but I can get this. So what can I do after this? You know? And remember, I haven't even touched my magic skills yet. See what I mean? The system of the game, even when limiting your moveset, is still interesting. So what if I cancel this into like an MP move? Like maybe down MP or something. Let's try that. Let me try to just end it with this instead, right? So let me go. Oh wow, that worked. This is every bit as much of a complex fighter offensively than any other game. And it's very fun. So it's more fun than it is simple. That's kind of the point I'm trying to make. And another example is like the timing of certain moves, allowing you to get certain things. So for instance, if I do something like this, then they're considered grounded, right? And so like, okay, how do I lift them up? So this is the OTG as well as, and so I can go here and do this, but there's no, they get up too quick, right? But again, if I do sort of like a, I guess tiger knee mentality, it's not a tiger knee, but if I just do it immediately off the ground, and this is how you know a game's like a proper sandbox, when you can input moves on your dime when you want to do an attack and not when the game wants you to do an attack. So there's no limit to when I can do this. I can do it up here. I can do it up here. I can do it here. I can even do it here. So obviously if I do this quicker, then it OTGs, you know? And so now I can combo. And you can really do it whenever you want. What if I want to combo into this? But remember, I can only do it up to where it's more slower, you know? And so something like this. I can literally spend all day on training mode with this character and many of the characters in the roster. The game is just so fun. It's undeniable.